Welcome to this week's Real Estate Deal Breakdown. I'm your host, Greg Helbeck, and thank you for either listening or watching this video. If you're not familiar with me, I've done over 350 real estate investing, fix and flips, hotels. I have a bunch of rentals. And the point of these videos and this podcast is to share with you what I've learned so you can benefit and be more successful. So if you get value from this, if you can share this with someone else, share the podcast. It really would mean a lot to me. Post it on social media if you're getting value. That's how we keep growing the show on a weekly basis, which is exciting. So today I'm going to talk about a house that was wholesaled in Port Orchard, Washington, which is in the peninsula. So first things first, this lead came from a relationship, right? This didn't come from any marketing that we did. This came from somebody that I know who lives over in Eastern Washington. They were like, hey, this owner, they want to sell. And the landlord had a crazy tenant there that they couldn't evict for a while. And they tried to wholesale it originally before I knew these people. And apparently the old tenant tried to stab one of the buyers, which was crazy. Obviously, the buyer was fine, but the deal was on pause for a while. They couldn't figure it out because the tenant was being a pain in the butt. So tenant ended up leaving. Property was vacant, so we decided to JV it. I paid a home inspector out of my own pocket, wanted to bring value to my friend. And I had them do, basically a walkthrough mini inspection. They took a bunch of pictures, got the inspection back. Property was in, decent shape. It wasn't horrible, but it obviously needed work. Ran the numbers. And we got it under contract at a really good price. We put a pretty big earnest money deposit down because we wanted to show the seller we were serious. And then we decided our exit strategy on this property was going to be to do an assignment of contract and wholesale it out. So the way that I started to, get this thing sold was, number one, my email list out here is pretty good. I got a good amount of buyers on there that are serious. And then number two, there's really good Facebook groups in Washington State. So if you have wholesale deals and they actually are deals and they're in areas that aren't horrendous, you will probably get it sold through Facebook. So that's actually how we ended up getting the buyer here. Someone saw that post in the Facebook group. They actually were local to Port Orchard. They said, hey, I really want it. Can you do better on the price? That was the only real buyer who was serious. Everyone else didn't want to take it at the original asking. I think we had like a $25,000 or $30,000 margin on that thing. But we knew there was not as much demand as we'd like, but there was still some interest. So I ended up basically having the buyer make me an offer. And I think they originally offered $15K, was what we would have made. And I'm like, we don't want to do a $15K. It's not worth it. We want to make at least 20, so we make 10 each. So we finally negotiated the final terms. We got a $20K, basically markup on what we had it under contract for. And I made sure the buyer was not going to get a bank loan. They were going to get hard money. And it turns out my friend in Eastern Washington, shout out to Elevate Spokane, Mike and Dan, and Casey and Allie, the squad over there. They actually have a hard money lending company. So ironically, they were able to give the buyer for this deal the hard money loan because they just started up a hard money company. So it actually was a win-win-win. So the buyer ended up getting the financing from my JV partner, and we ended up getting it to closing. And I believe it closed in about 25 or 30 days or something like that because the owner had to give the tenant some time to get their crap out. Everything worked out. And it was a great deal. And I never went to the property. I never talked to the owner. Did everything from my computer. It was awesome. Virtual wholesale 101 in my own backyard. So what are some lessons you can learn on this one? Number one, you need to collaborate with other investors, not compete against them, right? When you can align yourself with other real estate investors and you can figure out ways to bring value to each other, you can make a lot of money together. So in this case, they're all the way out in Spokane, but they were able to tap into my network, my knowledge. I was able to pay for the home inspection out of my own pocket and pretty much take the deal right off their plate once they had it under contract, and they didn't have to do much except for wait for me to find a buyer. So they got value from me. Obviously, I got value from them. They gave me this deal for free practically. Obviously, I did some work to, get involved in it, but I would have never gotten this lead otherwise, right? So I made 10 grand and my cost was zero, and they made 10 grand and they might have had some marketing costs, but they didn't have a lot of time investment. So it was a win-win situation. And, that's how it's done in 2025 is you want to collaborate with your competitors. Don't compete with them. You can make a lot more money working together versus working against each other. That's lesson number one. Lesson number two is this is an area like Port Orchard where, it's not as easy to wholesale stuff because there's not as many buyers. But if you have a deal and the numbers make sense, someone will buy it, right? And this one took like a week to sell. It didn't happen right away. It wasn't like put it out on a Monday and sold it on a Tuesday. This took a week to sell. I had to do some follow-up. So if you have a wholesale deal and it's priced at a reasonable number, it will sell. It might not sell right away, depending on where it is, but it will sell. There's always an ask for a seat. It depends on where you're looking for the buyer. So in this case, Facebook got it done, and that was awesome. So lesson number two, there's always a buyer for a deal if the numbers make sense, if you're working hard enough. So you got to put effort in for this. You got to have a system. And then the third lesson is And I've said this lesson before. You can do real estate investing without ever going to a house. And I've done that so many times, I can't even count on my fingers because I've done way more than that. So I've probably done, in terms of virtual wholesales where I've never seen the property, at least 150, if not 200. Like, you can do this business virtually. You never have to go to the house. You can do it anywhere in the country. And it's awesome. When you get a wire in your bank account and you never had to physically go somewhere, it is an awesome feeling. So if you have the right systems and you understand leverage, which in this case, the leverage I had was, instead of me driving there, I paid a home inspector $300 to go out, take pictures, do a little inspection. We got all the information we needed on the property. So when we sent that to the buyers, they were like, oh, wow, these people even did a home inspection. Like, it brought even more value. So you can leverage hyper local people to walk properties for you. So you never have to go there, and you can have a lot of leverage from a lifestyle standpoint. So that is the assignment deal in Port Orchard. I hope you got value. Hey, if you're in Port Orchard, if you're in Washington, if you're in New York, in the Hudson Valley or Delaware, you got a house you want to wholesale with me like this one, hey, send me an email, greg@velocityhousebuyers.com. I got great buyers, right? Or if you want to wholesale it to me, I'll buy it myself if the numbers make sense. But you got to make sure the deal makes sense. It has to have a margin there, right? So if you have a house you want to wholesale with me or to me, email me, greg@velocityhousebuyers.com, and I'll see you on the next REI deal breakdown. Take care.